Hey folks, if you're watching the recording, welcome to our ice cream meeting. I already ate my ice cream because it's gonna melt fast. So that's done. Now we're getting on to business. The first order of business, actually, I want to say is the reminder that next week, oh, hey, look, Bob's ice cream is done too.
Showing that.
Reminder that next week's meeting starts at 4 p.m. Eastern time, an hour later, wherever you are, an hour later than we have often been meeting. So if you can come next week at 4, that would be great. We're going to talk about value exchange, tokenomics, pooling value, that kind of thing. And I'm not in charge of that meeting. So Rob, wait, say more if you want to.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited about it. And I'll share a document that I've been working on. Just it's kind of like coalesced at least the current ideas. But yeah, I don't need to get into it now, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I had chocolate brownie ice cream, so I think that was important to mention.
Wow.
Yeah. Oat ice cream, oat milk.
So cool.
I know, what a world. Yeah, so I know, right? Like right now we are the 2 attendees, so you never know. And it's summer, and but I think that we can still accomplish what we want to accomplish. So yeah, what lead the way.
Okay. I'm not going to really follow the agenda really, in a big way, but I mean, what we just talked about is that I kind of proposed 4 intentions for the meeting, and I'm going to suggest we focus on 3 of them. Okay, number 1, which is actually listed as number 4, have fun, engage, and be good company. So we'll do that. Not worried about that one. And then number 1, producing the list of values. I'm struggling with values as the word. I'm wondering if there's another word we could be with, like maybe it's cultural values, maybe it's I guess what we're looking for is this piece that's right above the intentions, how we are doing the mission, vision, and purpose. What kind of, also code of conduct doesn't ring the bell for me, but something like that. What are the interpersonal, organizational ways of being, practicing, are we sort of wanting to sign on to as a group? And then when new members come in, we say, this is how we do it. If that works for you and you can sort of, lean on those as intentions and ways of being here, then that's great.
Yeah. I'm gonna maybe I'll just start making notes at the bottom because I don't want to
Sure.
sort of digging into messing up your agenda.
Yeah.
But yeah, you said like, and what'd you say, interpersonal, right? Because so what is the challenge with values? You're saying, thinking about like trying to find another word.
I guess it's values. I don't know why it keeps tripping a wire for me. Like, I don't know. I guess maybe it reminds me of vision, admission, and I'm like, well, we just did all that in the spring. I don't think we're trying to redo what we've done.
Yeah.
This is a little something different. It's I don't know, is it, membership values? Is it interpersonal values? Is it our organizational culture? Certain.
Yeah, I think it's the culture. I mean, to me, it is, yeah, right. To me, the purpose is why we're here, why we're doing this. The vision and mission is what we're doing. And then the values and the culture is like how we're doing it.
Yeah.
Because you could have a vision and mission. We want to, create a supportive space, and we want to, create like this, like our mission. We want to, be able to meet everybody's needs and all that, but we could do it in a way where like, I take over and I'm going to be the boss and I'm going to tell everybody how it is, and I'm going to kick out people I don't like and keep people I like, and coerce people. And maybe we'll end up with a result that looks something like our mission. you know, but like, I don't know that that's like the culture that we want or that would work, you know? So that's what I think of when I think, yeah, they're, you know, values and culture. And also, you know, like there's how we do it, but there's also how, I mean, and this maybe is like comes to culture or more hits code of conduct, which is like, you know, how we work together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that,
Okay.
yeah. So, right. So values, no, it's, yeah, I think it's good to define it and you can call it something else. But to me, it's different than like the vision or the mission.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Um,
Let's see.
okay.
Yeah. And I also think that there's something, okay, this was something that I always think of with values is like the word that always, the picture in my mind, you know, is that always comes to me is like baking in, like what are we baking into it, you know? So it's like your purpose, you know, like might be to, you know, to like make a cake, you know, but then what are you baking into it, you know? Are you
Mm.
using just, you know, whatever, the cheapest flour and sugar you can find, you know? Are you doing it really like quickly and not thinking about it, you know, or are you doing it with like these wonderful ingredients and you're, you know, making it with love and you're, you know, you have
That's a
somebody else.
great analogy. Yeah. I
Thanks.
mean, yeah, whether you're making a cake or making a meal, the other thing is like, we're not alone making a cake. Like we're HSC, we're making a cake together. So
Yeah.
how are we doing that? That's a great frame,
Yeah.
right? I'm not being like, Rob, get the eggs.
Yeah. Well, it's a good way to think about it, right? Because I'm baking some values, right, into a cake if I make it all myself. That's still
Yeah,
happening, right? But it can be pretty implicit,
right,
you know, and I could look back on it, you know, and say, oh, this is what I did. But when we're making a cake together, if you make it with like 5 different people,
right.
yeah, you would, right? Sometimes that happens, right? You get together and people make a meal together and like some people bash into each other and some people, you know, right? And sometimes
Right.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, but
Needs more salt. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does.
yeah, exactly. And usually, you know, you don't talk about beforehand, like what are the values or how you're going to work together to make the cake, you know, because it's sort of like, okay, it's a very, you know, it's a pretty, you know, condensed, you know, event.
Right.
But if we're trying to do something big, yeah, make this cake, like you know, it'd be great. Yeah, if we have all these people and the more people that come, the more different people have different ideas, you know, about how we should be making the cake together.
Right.
So I think
Right.
that's, yeah,
That's
yeah,
great. Let's hold on to that because I think for next week, the cake analogy is interesting also because we're talking about value and tokenomics and like who's bringing what ingredients and where did you get the ingredients and what portion of your income are the ingredients that you're bringing and then who gets to decide who gets to eat the cake and how big a piece does everybody get, blah, blah, blah.
yeah. Well, that's actually where it came from when I started, like, I don't know, that word came when I came upon like seeds and Haifa and
Yeah.
Web3 and blockchain and decentralized and DAO, right? I came to that like all at the same time, you know, and was looking at seeds and what, you know, what got me so excited really was this idea that like what seeds is trying to do and what you can do with blockchain is that you can bake values, right? That's just the word that comes to me, right? So I discovered seeds and I'm like, wait, you can bake your values into the currency.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's very exciting, right? Because you're programming in the currency to operate in different ways, you know, so we can,
Yeah.
And so you bake them in, right? And that's the idea of the blockchain and smart contracts. You know, we're talking about something here that can be more, you know, pliable, but I still think, you know, that to me is the excitement there, that we kind of, we bake them in, and yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
Cool, cool. So I know that you had something you were working on where you were pulling some material out of previous conversations and notes. Is that something that you want to share or talk about, or
Yeah.
certain pieces of that are standing out as you look at it?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I know, and I have like a lot of, I think my, you know, my challenge here, and you know, some of them, right, mesh together. So, my challenge right now is like, oh, well, there's like so many values, you know, that I have, right? And so how do we, you know, I don't know. It seems like it's fairly typical, you know, or recommended to kind of narrow it down to a few. So how, you know, how do I do that? So yeah, maybe why don't I just share kind of what I've got, you know,
Okay.
and bring that in, and then we can talk about that, and then maybe we can switch around and do the same for you, and you know,
Sure.
yeah. So when yeah, I think that, you know, as I go along, you know, and as I've been, right, this last weekend, I was working on like the value exchange, and what's the framework for that, um, you know, in governance. You know, to me, there's something about like trust, and I guess it's maybe, you know, like we talked about trust building.
Mhm.
I'm just making notes while we go, but yeah. Yeah, so there's something to me that feels like very at the very heart, um, you know, of like this trust and trust building, right? And there's so much underneath that. And it's funny because I looked at this document that I made. I can share in a little bit on like collaboration. Because I was writing this like, you know, big newsletter email, you know, for Haifa, and it was like, okay, what's, you know, and I started to think to myself, I'm like, well, what is collaboration really? You know, because I feel like I
Mhm.
have this, you know, kind of like a general idea, but I don't know that I ever like really tried to break it down. And then there's all these things that are in collaboration, right? And there's these values that are part of collaboration that could also stand by themselves as values. So so that was something that kind of gave me a little hope that like, okay, maybe we can narrow things down, because right, there's going to be, we say trust, right? And even if we say, hey, our values is trust, right? Like you said when we talked before, right? There's going to be, that's open to interpretation. But I think that there's something about trust that is foundational, because, you know, primarily what we're doing is we're saying, hey, we're going to like be here for each other, and we're going to support each other, and we're going to, you know, within our you know, particular community, you know, the idea is like, I want the best for you, you know, and you want the best for me, and we're gonna, you know, try and be looking out for each other, and you know, help hook each other up and work with each other. And then there's like the particular value exchange, which so much of that is, you know, based on like trust. Yeah, we need to have like reputation, you know, things in place, and we need to have, you know, like verification for things. But at the end of the day, like, it's, I think what we're doing isn't going to be held together, you know, solely by protocols.
Yeah.
And it's going to need, like, I think it's going to need to stand on trust. And so, yeah, that's just, you know, me talking about that as like a foundational one. And what was another, think collaboration is, there was, you know, there's also something, I don't know. Oh yeah, right. So there's something like, right, we're talking about like personal development,
Yep.
which is an interesting one. You know, personal growth. You know, some of that can come in kind of words by like, let me see. You know, like mutual like respect and feedback, you know, feedback and transparency, things like that. But there is this way where you know, personal, you know, personal development is like, you know, there's something about it like, when I think of personal development, it's like I'm gonna take whatever's here and allow it to like, you know, be an opportunity for like me to grow and learn, and I'm going to allow that for other people. You know, and give other people a space for that. And I don't know, is that like I don't know that's a, you know, if you go into, you know, most whatever companies or something, you'd be like, oh, do you want to like have trust in your organization? People are going to say like, yeah, of course.
Yep.
You know, but like personal development, I don't know, I don't know if that's like one of those ones in, you know, like our standard kind of
Yeah.
way. You walked in and say, hey, do you want personal development? You know, people to be, you know, people might like, do people want, you know, want that?
Right.
Or might it be like, no, we're gonna, you know, we're gonna sort of leave that out of here.
Do that on my personal time if I want to. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's personal, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
can learn, right? You can learn and grow around, you know, like work and getting better at your job, right? I'm just
Yeah.
talking this out, right? Like you want that. I guess that's called professional development.
Yes.
So whereas it's interesting, I don't know, I haven't really talked about like that.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about.
Yeah. Um, because that's hmm. And I just, you know, I think that there's something for me where I don't actually see that there's a real, that there, like, you can like draw like a hard line. I don't think that's true. I think I think that's a bit like
Right.
illusory,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And I think we don't. I think certain professional environments constrain what we actually are going to express, but we might still think it. We might observe things about ourselves at work that are very personal. We might observe things or judge or assume things about other people that are very personal, even in a professional environment.
Mhm.
And do we make that explicit? Do we have those conversations? Do we extend that kind of care to each other? Those are all just big question marks, I think, in working life.
Yeah. 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 It's very interesting, you know, because I'm working with like, um, you know, it's just a professional, you know, team and business, but it's, you know, authentic relating. So it's authentic relating trainings, right? And
Yeah.
that's their product or their service is, you know, courses in that, right? And so there's a way where there's an aspect of, you know, personal development or relationships in there that's just kind of you know, is baked in. Right. And it's like I love it, right? And it's like it's a great team. I don't, you know, they're not like trying to say like, I don't know, they said, oh, we want to be like a, you know, a cooperative or something like that, or but like they're operating a lot in that way. You know, there's a tremendous amount of trust.
Mhm.
And I think that, yeah, that helps.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, I mean, I don't know, you know, that I can move on, but I think that one is, it's maybe the most sort of
Unconventional.
unconventional. Yeah. Thanks. That's a great word for it.
Mhm.
Just making a note. Yeah. And I think we're trying to do something unconventional here. Anytime we're doing something that's not, that's like, you know, not the status quo, I think that, you know, I tend to think that we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me bring in, yeah, so trust building. All right, so I'm just gonna like bring in some other ones, a little more rapid fire here.
Sure. Go ahead.
So like, I mean, there is something called like, you know, human-centric.
Yeah. I'm always saying that. I don't use that language, but yeah, I say
Or
human
like,
scale, but that's not really what I mean. Yeah, there's not great language for it, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah, there's something which is all, there's something also something like whole person,
Yeah.
holistic.
Yep.
Um, there's, you know, there's inclusion and accessibility. I think those are, you know, I think those are big pieces, you know, because I
Yep.
think, right, that's a big piece that we're standing on, is we're saying, hey, like a lot of people are like left out of the party, you know, because whatever, they don't have, you know, money, or, you know, they're the value that they bring, you know, might be different than, you know, a profit first, you know, driven organization might be looking for.
Yep.
Like, or I'm just going to put collaboration. I can speak to that a little bit. I don't know what it's probably a better word than non-hierarchical, but I guess that's maybe
Well, you could say like horizontal,
collaborative, or
lateral.
yeah,
There's different words for it. Circular, all of that.
yeah. Let's see.
Anti-oppressive, which hierarchical is in there. Mutual, yeah.
Uh,
I can hold that for my.
um, yeah, you can, yeah, want to leave some for you. Something like, oh, I don't know, beings or humans, or there's something that I have that's like, right, that I think is important. It's like sufficiency. It's like refrainment, self-limitation. Which I think are values that are, those are not values that are in our you know, that are put forth in our culture. Like refrainment,
What does that mean?
renunciation, those are like, it's like that's so what that means is like, and I think the sort of positive side of it is sufficiency, you know, so it means like having like enough, like getting to a point, you know, where like what I have is enough.
Hmm.
Because we live in a, you know, in a system where it's literally like never enough.
Right, right. So is that,
That's not,
yeah,
that's like not a value. Like, you know, like philanthropy is supposed, you know, is a value, is like, but that's basically, you know, to me, different. That's saying like, well, when you feel like you really have enough, you know, then you can give away.
Like really enough. Like really,
Yeah.
really. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Interesting. Okay, I'm looking for words for it, but I think I get what you're going for.
Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't really thought of like self-limitation. I read this, you know, website on something called Commons Economics, right? And it talks a lot about like this, like idea of like self-limitation. You know, within like it's taking it's like within the framework of, it's not saying like don't want abundance, but it's also you know, like bringing that in the framework of like, you know, like there are finite resources,
Mhm.
you know, on this earth.
Mhm.
And so, you know, can I be sufficient, you know,
Mhm.
at a certain point? You know, but I think it requires that, you know, sort of some of that value to come in, and for, you know, and for people to say like, because we can help each other be sufficient too. But if I'm always wanting more, 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 it's not generally like gonna be the energy that's bringing about sufficiency for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop there. Oh no, there's one more thing, right? I think this is interesting. I just want to share my screen, and then I know there's only two of us, so you know, can take up a lot of time. But I want to share my screen because I thought this was really interesting, right? So I was this was like a chat with Chat GPT, and you know, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. But I thought this was interesting, and I was writing, you know, this email about like, you know, DAOs and comparing them to human organisms. So I won't, you know, talk about all this, but it's like, hey, you know, and then, you know, we were talking about collaboration. I was like, let's step back for a second. Like, what is collaboration? You know, so you talked about living in a, you know, in a collaborative manner. So,
Mhm.
you know, there's all this stuff, but I think this was like the question that was most interesting to me. Wow. Which is basically just like trying to just break down, what does that mean? What does collaborative mean, right? Because I'm saying, okay, well, like I think collaboration is a value, right? And so saying, you know, like collaboration, working together towards a common goal, you know, leveraging the resources, strengths of all participation, collective effort, shared responsibility, and mutual benefit. That's pretty
Mhm.
good. You know, and then it really breaks it down, like shared goals, mutual respect, transparent communication, equity and inclusion, shared decision making. That's a good one. You know, cooperation, leveraging synergies, adaptability, supporting each other. And then it actually was like, it was on fire this, you know, this particular day. It was like, then it just busted out, oh, these are actually like values of collaboration.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting to bring in because no, wait, where are my meeting notes? Oh yeah, they're on a different page. I think it's interesting to bring in because, you know, there's something where like collaboration has a lot to it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, yeah, maybe they all do. So yeah, I might link to this article
Sure.
or bring in
Yeah.
something. Yeah, yeah, I just think it's interesting. Maybe I'll just bring this in. All right, let me see. Yeah, I think there's something, there's something you know, maybe this comes back to like the personal development or the trust building. I think there's something that I like about, you know, moving that line between like professional and personal, like over a bit, you
Mhm.
know, and having somebody feel like they can bring their whole self in, like how they can bring, how we're like making a whole person resume. You know, there's like something behind that whole person resume. You know, somebody can bring their whole self in. You know, there just has to be like, if what that means is somebody comes in and they're like falling apart, you know, then I think that there has to be something in the infrastructure, you know, that can hold them. So you can't have like, you know, just a whole group of people all falling apart. But you know, I think that there's something towards that line, and that's just, you know, it's my personal leaning, and I think that helps to build trust and helps to build something that's, you know, really that's operating in a different manner. Thank you for hearing me.
I just now I'm reading the top half of your t-shirt.
Did I plan that? I don't know.
Wise Yoda.
Important
We need in our group is someone who's 300 years old.
Yeah. Wise elders.
Yeah. Come on, Yoda. Where are you?
All right. So thanks for working with me and hearing me talk.
Yeah, sure. That was great. Yeah. I took a bunch of notes. I started to, you know, sort of expand on things that you were saying, and then of course you went on and said things that I'd written down, you know, just after. So that was fun. Yeah, it's great. And it's really cool that you did that whole like mapping of collaboration thing. It's like, I know structures like that are out there too, because people have been thinking about this and sort of diagramming these things for a long time, and a lot of people have been doing this. And so there's that urge I have for us to be sort of revolutionary and visionary, but know that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like this is being done. This territory is being explored.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
we might not want to do exactly what anyone else is doing, but there are many thinkers and creative people and groups of experimenting who have been doing some of this. So that was cool to see some of the map. Cool. Yeah, I can really see how the list of values can easily end up being really long, and how some of the values overlap or feed into the same sort of umbrella, like the same sort of themes, right? Like they might sort of fall into certain categories, or that we can choose, maybe we end up choosing a word that encompasses more of the terms. Do you know what I mean? But we start with trust, and then we might end up describing what we mean by that, and what are sort of the underlying values, and then the practices of trust building. So there's a lot that can be developed. Or articulated, and it's a balance, I think, of not wanting to overwhelm people, but also like, if people feel like geeking out on it, there's a lot of material they could go through. It's possible, right?
Yeah, totally. Right. And that brings in something else, which is like the next layer, which is we say, okay, well, like trust and collaboration, or what, you know, are our values. And then it's like, okay, now how do we practice that then? You know?
Yeah.
So it's there's a lot to it.
Yeah, totally. So I just made a little note. I wrote trust, and then I did a little like branching off from that. I just did it on paper, so I'll just read it, or I can type it up too. So just as an example, under trust, I have honesty, accountability, responsibility, mutual support, assuming benevolent intent, and communication. So that's, at the very least, some aspects that come into trust and trust building. And then of course you've got something like, you know, accountability is one of those items, and that expands I imagine, into, at the very least, showing up for your commitments, like reliability, acknowledging your impact is part of being accountable. I made a mistake. Oops, that impacted other people or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then learning from those mistakes, that's part of being accountable, or responsible, able to respond to the situation, environment, your own internal reality at the time. So I don't want to go too far into that, but I just as an example, that with all of these, we could probably do that kind of thing. They all sort of expand. It's sort of like you zero in, and then it's like you're looking at it with a magnifying glass, and then you see more detail, and then you pick one of those and you see more detail. Yeah, and then I did a little bit of noting, as you were talking about personal development and personal growth, I was thinking about, like, is it a growth mindset? Is it a learning environment, a place where learning is encouraged and supported? Self-reflection, I think, is a huge aspect of personal growth mindset, to be able to reflect and observe oneself. So that's some of what I was pulling in there.
Yeah.
Is there some kind of way that this personal growth really sound more new agey, and is some of what we're looking for, interested in, is that sort of willingness to be a lifelong learner, to have a curiosity about, oh, how is it that I'm being in this group, and how is this group being with me and in me, and how do I respond to it, and how are my skills, how can I build my skills, and that kind of thing. There might be better language for what I mean by learning environment.
Yeah.
So that was another
totally.
sort of thought there. And then just thinking about this idea of sufficiency, enoughness, anti-capitalist. There's certain religious traditions where devotees, monks or nuns, they take on what they call, I think, voluntary poverty. And I don't think we're looking for that. We might be looking for like voluntary middle classness, like willingness to self-assess and take the much bigger picture into consideration.
Yeah.
Again, there may be better language for it, but that was interesting to sit with. But definitely anti-capitalist. I mean, the capitalist assumption is that we will use the resources, and we will keep using the resources to accumulate wealth with no thought for the future ramifications. That's the principle of capitalism. Right? Am I right? Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Hi, Christine.
What is the
Hey,
principle
guys.
of capitalism? That's a good question. Hi, Christine.
Hey, what's
Good
going
morning.
on? Yeah.
Good morning.
I hope it's a good morning.
Yeah, it's still dark, so the sun hasn't come up yet. I feel a bit like, wow, look at me.
Yeah.
It looks
Yeah.
very like soft and cozy where you are. The
Yeah.
light is like
I like cozy lighting. Yeah.
it's pretty gentle and forgiving.
Yeah.
Cool.
What's going on?
Well, we're talking. It's a meeting of
Okay.
two, but now it's a meeting of three, which is even better.
Yeah, wow. Nobody else came? Well, they
No,
came and went.
no one else came today. We'll see. I mean, people could still pop in.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to hide my self view now that you're here so I can, oh, there we go. That's better. Yeah. I mean, is there anything you want to say by way of like arriving?
No, just curious. Like, yeah, I just thought I would like slip in, but obviously there's only 3 people, so it's hard to just slip in.
Yeah, sorry, you can't just slip in.
Mhm.
You can look over the meeting notes and we can just
Oh,
keep
okay.
talking until you feel oriented or
Sure.
have something you want to,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
is that kind of what
Yeah.
you want to do? So we're in the meeting notes and we're kind of having a conversation about values, community, I forget what language we were using. We're still playing with the language for what we're talking about. Sort of, core values, how to be together as we do our vision and mission and purpose. So values, community practices, organizational values. I noted in preparation for this meeting that some organizations have a code of conduct. That sounds so like policeable that like I don't really want us to have a code of conduct, It's
Right.
like, it's not the point. Although we may have accountability structures at some point. Code of conduct is so yeah. So that's what we're up to. And I threw a bunch of notes in here. And on a side comment, I don't know if you looked at it yet, Rob. I put what the IFS Institute had on their website just because I happened to see it. Principles in practice through all our efforts as a team and individuals. Calm in our demeanor, inner state, curious about ourselves and each other, compassionate to ourselves and each other, confident in who we are in the world, courageous in our exploration within and how we engage with others, creative in how we approach life's opportunities and challenges, connected to all parts of ourself and to the other people with whom we have relationships. So that's what they use. Their internal family systems is like a therapeutic model that, yeah, everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Need a introduction. So I'm not suggesting we do theirs, but I think it's interesting to see what other folks have come up with and how they framed it. And of course, that's just the external version. That's what they put on their website. What they have internally is probably a lot more robust than that, I would guess, because they're big and they have big staff probably. Yeah.
So, Saya, did you yeah, so you right before Christine got here, you were naming off a bunch of different values, right? And so are those ones that you're going to put in the notes, or did you put those somewhere?
Right now they're on paper.
Okay.
So I'm happy to put them in there, but yeah, it's hard for me to type and like be in a Zoom meeting at the same time, which is why often when I lead meetings, I'm like, can other people take notes? But I scratch things on paper.
Okay. Well, because I was saying you sort of like reeled them off fairly quickly, so I was gonna, yeah. Do you want to like just name them again, right? And that would also actually just be a natural review for Christine, and then I can jot them down if that sounds good.
Yeah, sure. So what I was doing is I was first I looked at trust, and then I was like, oh, if we zoom in on trust, if we look at it like with a magnifying glass, it expands into, at the very least, honesty, accountability, responsibility, mutual support, assume benevolent intent, and communication. And that was just like, in 30 seconds. There's a lot more that goes into trust.
Yeah.
It was kind of just my example that any one, like we have these sort of categories that we could think about. We want to sort of get down to 5, maybe 10 sort of core principles of these sort of values, these like core values. Yeah, and then I did the same thing for accountability. So if you zoom in here, I can't see, I can't type and zoom at the same time. If you zoom in there, there's, you know, showing up for one's commitments, acknowledging your impact, learning from your mistakes. Again, this is not comprehensive. It's just meant to show that there's all these things that are nested within organizational values that we could explore. And also, if we end up with, you know, even just between Rob and I, we're only 2 people, right? If we had like 8 members of HSC, we could probably generate a list of values that would be like, you know, 25 values long at the very least. And how do we narrow that down? We might see that some overlap or are very interrelated. And so we might choose to sort of categorize them. Yeah. Is that kind of what you were thinking, Rob? Because that's
Yeah,
what I have been saying, more or less.
exactly. Yeah, you
Trying to
shared all
say.
of those.
Yeah.
You shared those, and I was just sort of, yeah, you went quickly, so I was just taking them in, and so I just wanted to,
Cool.
yeah, bring them in on the notes, because I think that's really, I think it's helpful. I mean, I think you highlighted some nice values there, but also like the way that you nested them in each other, I think can be helpful.
Yeah.
Especially
Cool.
like you're saying, you know, for some, right, like somebody is, I'm like, oh, I'd come in, I could see like 20 different values, but it's, yeah.
Yes. Yes, it's easy to do.
I have an idea
Yeah.
about nesting the values. What about we nest them like in terms of the sociocratic structure and then like other things like subsections of HSC? Like we have what the like organizational circles, what sort of values they might have, and then maybe then have values for like the member experience as well.
That would be interesting. I wonder if like each circle would develop what they find like their core values are. You know, as
I mean,
each
it could
circle
be
sort
useful.
of develops its own like definition and
Yeah,
you know, of
well,
course
then it
that
would be
comes
more
back
specific.
to the whole circle. Right. Right. Yeah, that might be a way that the nesting comes in, possibly. Yeah.
Just an idea. Because when you said nesting, I was thinking the structures.
Yeah. There's a lot of nesting in what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of nesting. I think we're mostly, I think, like wanting to get clear on what are the what's the real umbrella that like all of HSC can be sort of sheltered under and embraced by, so that all members and all incoming members feel like clear on what organizational values and practices they are being asked to agree on and participate in as members. And I think that's members who are doing operations, members who are not doing governance, like it's everyone. I think on some level we want to create enough of a common culture that we are sharing, you know, like enough of a common sort of pond that we're all swimming in. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think Sociocracy for All, they have values written on their website, like specifically for sociocracy.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Yeah.
I've not looked at that. That would be a good thing to look at.
Yeah, I'm not an expert, but I just think like they've got that sort of spelled out already. So
Yeah. Yeah, they've got, it's pretty, yeah, I mean, it's pretty impressive, you know, they have, it's a pretty, you know, in all encompassing kind of piece there. And Yeah, and I think that's right. That's the idea, is to like, yeah, that's what are these organizational values or culture?
Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. I also, in preparation for this, I did a bunch of thinking about how, there's, I don't know, maybe we should stick to the values. I started to jump off into like tools for how we're going to do this, like practices that we are either already doing as a group, implicitly, and tools that we could work on learning together, whether it's practicing together, having outside teachers, presenters come in and share skills and knowledge around how to enact these values and be better listeners and more clear communicators and self-reflective members. But now that I'm looking at it, I think, oops, that might be too far. We're not there yet.
Yeah, maybe. I like having that. I just like naming that, because
Yeah,
right, it does feel like that next level of, said we've got the values, and then it's like, how are we practicing the values?
sure,
Yeah, and then
sure.
because there were,
Right.
and what are how are we practicing the values? What are the ways we're doing that? How do we, yeah? And I know that you'd had some ideas when we talked last week about that were cool. So yeah, maybe we don't need to like totally bring that in, but I like naming it.
Okay. Cool.
So
I
those
think I'm
things in the chat that I put there, those things says 3 foundational values for the sociocratic circle method.
Oh.
So I don't know if that's the type of thing that you were imagining as well.
cool. Hang on. I have to open the chat. Hello, chat. There it is.
Yeah. Oh, I put it in the notes.
Oh, thanks.
Alrighty. Yeah. Effectiveness. What we do makes a difference. Equivalence. Everyone's voice matters. This
Nice.
does not mean we are all identical or equally persuasive. And transparency. We work openly. Yeah. I mean,
Nice.
those feel like, values. Definitely like, core organizational values.
I mean, it's not what I would write, but that's what the sociocratic group has made. So
Yeah. But
No,
it's a
it's
really
also just great
good
to see
example.
that a group has narrowed it down to 3.
yeah,
It's inspiring. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Did you have anything that you're bringing in? Sai and I have already sort of, I think, shared most of what we were bringing in ourselves.
Yeah, probably just not put a lot of thought, just because I mean, in my mind the values feel pretty clear, but hey, like we're meant to be describing them, so that's the practice here. I also
I'd love to
feel
hear
that
what seems clear to you, because there's like the implicit that maybe hasn't been articulated, but you have a sense of them. So I'd love to hear that.
yeah, like what I'm feeling is that maybe this values work could be part of the sense making that we do with members, because yeah, there might be a couple of fixed values that are like, don't step outside these boundaries type thing, and also like an inspirational factor, but then other values might just be where people get excited and actually want to do some play and some ongoing exploration. So that was one thing. And also like this idea of just in time. So what HSC will need will be things that like evolve and happen like just in time as needed and in a relevant way to where HSC is at. So if you combine those two thoughts, then there could be a way just to like consciously say like we're going to be evolving the values periodically ongoing with members, and that's like an important part of being a member or something like that, that you contribute to that.
Yeah, cool.
Mhm.
I like that. I love that after you said some are like a box that is like really defined, my next thought was like, people are going to want to draw outside the lines. And then the next thing you said, members are still exploring the territory, and that's another whole picture. And I was like, yeah. And anytime
Yeah.
somebody makes a box, somebody wants to draw outside.
Mhm.
Basically, human nature, yeah.
So that's perfect to have both, acknowledged. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like you could have some really clear boundaries, like be like, because humans like boundaries too. Like little children are like, no, don't touch that burning stove. But why? Like, but just don't do it. So, like, maybe there's some things where we can be like, just don't do it. And then there could be other things that are more like aspirational and, yeah, like enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what
So
did you
what did
say?
you?
What's that phrase about time you used?
Oh, just in time. So
Yeah.
that, like, that could be a value in itself. But then if you're like, because say like you're working on a project with a work pod, or you are doing something else with HSC, like because it's a place where people flow in and out and it's not maybe not the main focus, like having a value of just in time is like a reminder of like you don't have to be here always, like you don't have to have all the knowledge and all the everything, you just have to be there just in time, like to play your part, or that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I think that feels like very similar to that, like one of these two sayings that I think we have, which is we who are here, which is kind of like, this thing gets built by the people who are here at the time they're here. So it's like we who are here are building this and are sort of creating like our first round of, values.
Yeah.
And then, to say, right, like I don't think the idea is to choose a set of values and then like that's what's locked in. Yeah, I think that like everything, there has to be like that flexibility and adaptability and learning and growth. And, just like with vision, mission statements and all that, they can change over time. But I do like the idea of having a group starting place, because then there's something to start with, something that is kind of explicit, and then people can, and then we push off of that.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason why HSC can't develop something that is potentially new and that stands on its own, so in the way that the sociocratic values stand on their own, like HSC as a member experience, cooperative, whatever, value exchange. Like there's probably not that many value systems that apply specifically to that type of experience. So if HSC develop ones that fit around that model, then that's actually like a unique offering to the world.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's
cool.
That's a great thought. Is somebody taking notes?
Yeah. But I was just
I'm taking notes on paper again.
You can always transfer those after.
Yeah, sometimes I do. Sometimes I do that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I was thinking of the words like like that the HSC organizational values are, iterative or emergent, that we have an emergent culture. And so it's
Emergent.
that it's knowing that this is the current iteration and that it continues. It's on, emergent means that it's just always emerging into the next thing. Not that nobody wants every meeting to be talking about values. It's more like when the time is right, or when there's some kind of, maybe even there's a review process that comes around periodically to assess and share and sort of critique how it's been going and what adjustments are needed. That there are the phases of emergence and yeah.
Because there's also the link between values as an organization and value exchange. I don't know if that's something that we should explore, but a bit more of it. To me, in my mind, that might be something.
Maybe that's why I was having such a hard time calling this like values, a list of values, because of that. If something about it was like, I was like, wait, I don't know, but I don't like code of conduct, it's more like community practices, organizational ideals, aspirations, I'm not sure, but yes, we do have, yeah.
You have to be okay with that. I know, because there is a way where like values, how we're saying meaning values and like value, like we're talking about two different things. To
Yes.
me, I don't, yeah.
Right. Yeah, so it'd be good to differentiate that. Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if there's a way you can play on that together a little bit, like in a way that people would appreciate.
Yeah, we might be able to, but I think we also need to differentiate it enough so that, yeah, both. Playing with it sounds more like entertaining marketing, like that'll be fun. But for clarity, I think we also maybe want clarity, maybe. Yeah.
But what about if as you enter the value exchange, like that there's some sort of values sense making experience as part of that, like, because as each unique person enters with their offerings and their needs, then that sort of defines values on a micro level, like each time. So like we could have the big overarching values, and I agree. But then in terms of people interacting with values, that might be like a point on their journey where we get to get something from them as well. Like that's like when they like pour into that pot of like, why are you here, and like what are your values existing coming in as well. And then that might actually add some layers to say, like, even just like how they fit inside the ecosystem. Like people could be like organized according to what values that they select as like their top 5 or something, or in some sort of like interactive way where the values that they're like selecting or that they're expressing then shapes like their journey, their member journey through the whole like pool of members, something like that.
It could be interesting. I'm a little overwhelmed by the implications of what it would take to do that. That's my like
Okay.
blank face.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
I'm getting my overwhelming processing lack of ability imagining how that would work, even though it sounds really fascinating as a social / professional experiment.
Well,
and maybe like one step before that's occurring to me, like just as I try to simplify for my brain, is ways, fields or ways for people to express sort of what they know about themselves in terms of how they function or how they operate. For example, punctuality could be considered a value. People could have a value for being punctual. An organization could have a value for being punctual. You know, and then sort of conversely, people could have a value for being in the flow. And I'm so in my flow writing an article over here that I'm going to be late for the HSC meeting. I'm not going to be punctual, right?
Yeah.
Now, nobody's wrong, but if our values just conflicted, then somebody might be upset.
Yeah, it's true.
Right. So an interesting exploration of, you know, like if we put all the punctual people in one group, they might be very comfortable with that, but they might also not learn anything. Right. For example, so, and there's no pros or cons there. It's, well, there are pros and cons, but it's not a judgment of what's right and what's wrong. It's more like, as we understand ourselves and each other and articulate those things, some of the bumps could be, if not smoothed out, could be at least understood. I have some friends who are very busy and love to be very busy, and they schedule all their time way in advance. And if I ever want to see them, I have to schedule way in advance.
Yeah.
And I like to be spontaneous also. I like to schedule, and I have a value for spontaneity and for open time and free time. So it's like, the more I know that, and we know that about each other, you know, the easier it gets to stay in good relationship. So I'm thinking,
yeah, I like that idea.
The members entering into this, like how much that self-reflection and self-knowledge and witnessing the other and willingness of the other person is different from me, and that could actually be really okay.
Yeah, it feels like a part of possibly the whole person resume as well.
It's part of a whole person, in my view, yes.
It's like a more in-depth study of like their values, including their work values, but also just where they fit on the spectrum between like scheduled and spontaneity. Like maybe they're an 8, maybe they're a 4, maybe they're a 4.5. That would be really like useful and helpful, like in terms of creating introductions between people, or like even creating offerings where you're like, okay, how to learn to be more spontaneous. And then you send that to all of the super scheduled people and there's a workshop. And then you can do the opposite, where it's like how to be more scheduled and send that to all the spontaneous people.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I'm like really into, you know, I'm really into being accountable and like showing up for my commitments. But if my kid is sick, I'm not showing up for my commitment because my value around parenting outstrips my commitment to HSC.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm not committed. It's just like the ranking of my personal values may not match the ranking of HSC as an organization, for example.
Yeah. Well, the whole idea is that it would be a whole person view. Like it wouldn't just be about what they're willing to give to HSC. It'd probably be like parenting could be on there for sure.
Right.
And I like the idea of like if you're nesting something, like you could have a nest per person. Like it wouldn't have to be like a list. It could be like a nest. I don't know how we would visualize that.
I'm visualizing a year of workshops. That's what I'm visualizing.
Yeah. Right. So there's a value there, right? Like, so if we're saying, hey, we really want to, you know, learn how to, you know, like learn how to work with each other well and have, you know, like actually take time to do that. Right. Like if we want a year worth of workshops and we want people to write this kind of thing down in their whole person resume, then that's like speaking that there's a value there, you know, because somebody might come in and say, well, why are we wasting so much time on all of this? You know, like, well, why aren't we just getting to work? And it's like, oh, well, there's this like organizational value that we have. Yeah,
and I am exaggerating with a year of workshops. Just
no, I get it, but I'd say I mean,
just like the magnifying glass on anything.
I don't know what the value is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You know, and if we're going back to that nesting thing too, and just trying to find a short list of values, you know, some of this whole personness, inclusion, it really comes into inclusion, accessibility, diversity in some ways, because we're diverse. We may be neurodiverse, we may be racially diverse, we may be culturally diverse, and that will influence how we show up and how we interact
Mhm.
and how we are perceived and how we perceive other people. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if inclusion is a value, then all of this, I believe, at least would nest partially under there.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Right. I don't know if I've told this story here, but I've been in women's circles most of my adult life, and currently 13-year ongoing same circle of people. We used to be 5 members, and one woman operated on what I like to call indigenous time, very much in the flow, not punctual. And I had a lot of respect for that. And I would say I fall somewhere in the middle on that. And the 3 other women are very punctual, very structured, very planned in advance, felt uncared for, unloved, and disrespected when person A was late because they were on indigenous time. It was hard. She left the circle.
Mhm.
So were we inclusive? No, not really, actually. And I'm years later, I'm still kind of bummed about it. So just to say these things happen. And
Yeah.
I think we can do better.
Well, I like what you all, are saying or like pointing at, which is that, right, there is a way where if we're trying to articulate our values, both as a group and then, and then individually, then, when conflict arises, then we have something to, to hold us together.
Right.
Right. When that happens. And I think to me, that's such a big piece of like going through the exercise of mission, purpose, vision, values. Like we made our mission, purpose, and vision. They're great. I don't know that anybody's looked at them afterwards, and that's fine, because I don't know that there's been any sort of like conflict about what we're doing since we wrote those out. But at some point there will be, and or maybe not. Who knows? Maybe we'll just be the best. But if there is, then we dust them off, and we're like, oh yeah, this is what we're doing, and I think the same thing like with values.
Yeah.
But again, then the values also then lead to like, okay, now how are we practicing those values?
I think there's a difference between being like hard and fast values and then values like, say, interactivity, which like implies that, or like co-creation, which implies responsibility of like ongoing sensing in order to make things work.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I think that is definitely a value. Like,
to me, that
right.
might be a little bit more specific to HSC than just saying things like community or, like just general, like be a good person type values.
Can you say it again? There's one word you used that I wanted to
What's
grasp.
that? Which part did you?
Sorry, it feels like something said like emergent, because there's something in there, like emergent could be a word.
Well, I just thought interactive, co-creation, like those types of words that imply a whole lot, and also make the person feel that they're there, like they're part of it, they have to have a role in it. And it's also specific to what people are doing inside HSC as like an exchange partner, basically, like everyone coming in as an exchange partner. I just made that up, but like that's sort of like the vibe where like everyone comes in.
Right, participatory.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. We have a value for participation.
Well, this is helpful. So are these kind of the things, because you said, earlier, Christine, you said, oh, I think like the values are kind of apparent. Are these kind of what you're talking about? Because I think that's really like, I'm interested in like what somebody coming in and thinks are like apparent. Like I'm definitely interested in hearing that.
I was just thinking like we could structure it, like in a body map type way. Like we could have values like not like for the head, the heart, the body, but like values in some way of like, we have this little burst of values like like kindness, authenticity, like those are like sort of like heart values, like for want of a better word. And then there's like this could be like this little bubble of like root values or something, like when it comes down to actually doing the exchanges, like and doing the work, then that's sort of like a different type of value. Like, so I don't know if a map would be the correct way of doing it, or the best way, but it could be just a way of saying like there's multi-levels here.
Yeah, it's like a framework to be thinking about them in. The human body organism.
Cool.
Um, yeah, no, actually, I was just gonna ask you. I was like, look, where do you feel like we are in the meeting now?
Well, we are here in a very good place. Something about my working style that I know that there are certain parts of work that I do really well collaboratively, like live time like this. And then there are certain parts that I do really well on my own, in my own little bubble, right? So, for example, we have a potential for a long list of values. We could be discerning what are the core values, and that's actually a piece of work that I would find really easy to like sit down and bust through in my own brain. And it might be interesting if a few people were to do that and see what came back, like what would sync. However, if you all have a totally different working style where you would love to do it more in dialogue, then that's also an option. Do you see where I'm going in that sense of like self-knowledge, self-reflection part?
I do. Yeah. I mean, however we do it, I think that I like where like basically what you're pointing at to as the next step, which is saying like taking, everything that we've talked about here, right? Which also I know there's only 3 of us, but what we're talking about here does also sort of stand on what we have been talking about, as a group for a while. Yeah, and saying like, okay, let's take everything here and try to at least condense it down to a certain amount.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think that no matter how we do that, I think that's a good idea.
I can take a chunk
I'm fine
of
either
it.
way. Oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
can take a chunk of it and just put it in the member experience mirror board, for example, like the things that are relevant. Like from what I was talking about, I feel like there's more relevant maybe to member experience than anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
well,
you to take a bunch of this and put it into the member experience Miro board, and then the member experience circle would be working with it.
Yeah, like I started a section about the whole person resume inside the board, like just taking a couple of notes, but obviously it needs a lot more added, but some of this feels directly related. And so I'd probably put some bits there just to like try to look at it in a concise way together.
Okay. And what's your interest or thought about the sort of discernment process of sort of bringing this all into, you know, top 5 sort of umbrella values of the organization.
Yeah, maybe we could do a little like blast out to everyone asynchronously that everyone can provide something.
Yeah, that's a possibility. We could
'Cause
sort of
we're-
invite people.
Yeah, because I think you're talking about,
chime in.
yeah, so to name, right, like I'm fine with sort of the same idea that Saya said, right, which is a way that I work as well, you know, sort of take everything here and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go into my little hole and, you know, see if I can pull out, you know, some of the pieces here.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and then, but yeah, but Christine, it sounds like you're speaking to another method, and so which is great. So what would that look like?
Well, maybe we need a bit more information from everyone, and then we can all go. Then we can go into the hall and work on it. Like, because to me, like I work on like words a bit better when I am on my own, or just like in a real slow kind of steady way. Because like I can't just write something amazing, just like right now. I probably wouldn't.
Meanwhile, we're
But
looking over each other like
huh?
this. While we're looking over each
What?
other.
Yeah, like trying to just come up with that perfect little turn of phrase, like yeah.
Okay.
So,
So yeah, go ahead.
okay. Oh yeah, so like, should we, right, and maybe Christine, what some of, you know, it sounds like maybe what you'd like to do is distinguish some of the values between like the whole organizational values or culture and then specific to member circle.
Yeah, I just
But
think there's a way for people to play with values over time that will actually help HSC as well. So yeah.
totally, yeah. I think the question is how do we get that, like how do we get that started? And there's, you know, there is a way where I think that people will, you know, we could ask for people to come and to, you know, put their, you know, their thoughts and their opinions in, but you know, we did do that. And so I think that it might be good to like coalesce what we've talked about here, and then we could put that out to the group and then see, and then say, hey, what do you all think of this? And what else do you have? You know, like what are we missing?
Oh, I'm wondering if I could do that. If I could like essentially write an email to HSC, but have you guys look at it first. I'm probably also on deck to just like write the email for are you writing an email for next week?
Yeah, I was gonna write it for next week because I was, you know, just gonna do it on
Okay.
value.
About the
Singular.
value tokenomics thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I would be so down to like sort of summarize our conversation today and then sort of like coalesce some of it a little bit. Of course, all these notes are available to everyone. It's not as though they're hidden. We are fully transparent here. And make that sort of an invitation for other folks to participate. How's that sound? And then that could go out in the next email, giving people some kind of time frame for reflecting, participating. And if people don't because they're busy or they're not invested, then those of us who are interested move forward with, you know, essentially a proposal for the umbrella values possibility. Okay. So I'm going to draft that email and I'm going to share it to you two.
That sounds great. And
Cool.
Christine, did you want to do some of that? You know, coalescing yourself as well? Or are we just saying like, Saya, you can do it?
I don't I think I missed the first part. Like I can read the notes, but I probably would miss the subtlety if I tried to capture it.
Okay.
All right. That's great. I feel good about you doing it.
Okay, awesome. Sweet. Are there other next steps? I'm typing at the bottom of the notes, by the way, next steps that come out of today.
Right.
Well,
I'm
I
curious.
guess are we happy
Oh,
with
yeah.
with sort of the values, and then and then from there we start to dig more into like, this is how we're practicing the values, and this is how we're working together given these values. Does that seem?
Yeah, I think so. I think that makes sense. Right?
Mhm.
Or in terms of like sequencing. Cool. Cool.
Yeah, what was the other piece? Sorry, what was the other piece that you said you wanted to maybe do today, but we probably wouldn't? Was there?
Well, that was more about practices for like culture building, for like being a collaborative group. I had made a bunch of notes that were more about practices. I put a few of them in here when I said that: practice of inquiry, practice of consent, practice of, assuming benevolent intent for everyone, and be curious about the failings of another, the mistakes of another. Yeah, so those are a few. And then I also made notes. I'll throw them in here too. No. Tools, quick brainstorm. Again, other organizations have already done this. This is just me in my flow state, just like boom. Tools for knowing ourselves. Hang on, I'm going to put it in under practices. Sorry, Rob, I'm going to put it right over where
No, just go. Yeah, I'm good.
You're good? Okay.
Yeah.
So
is this
tools.
Is this part of what Rob was implying about, like, so this is the same thing, is that right? Just so I know.
It's kind of what I think comes next.
Yeah.
Right, I believe is like the skills for listening, for communication, for self-inquiry, for self-soothing, self-inquiry, ability to hold our own pain and grief, I think is an essential skill for relating of all kinds, professional and personal.
Yeah. Imagine if you saw that on the website, you'd be like, whoa.
Yeah, I know. We don't put it first. Yeah, people will, get there. It's not, anyways.
I'll be right back. I'm just gonna take a quick bio break.
Okay.
I'll be right back. Just please keep going.
All right, cool. Yeah, tools for building a regenerative culture, thinking beyond the binary. What else is possible? The tool of gratitude and appreciation helps build a regenerative culture, assuming everyone's basic, essential, and inherent goodness. Rob actually talked about that too, up top in his notes. He talked about, he had a good word for it. Intrinsic value of all beings. Yeah, so there's that. And then I can tell you a little bit something that I already mentioned to Rob. Did you see here where I talked about consentient beings?
Oh, I just clicked on that website, but I'll check it out later. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can just say quickly, Rob's already heard this. The two people who started this organization are sort of friends of mine here. And I had a quick talk with them, I think it was at the end of last week, and they're just starting this business, and they would offer us an 1.5-hour workshop on communication skills, listening practices, and they could tailor it to what we feel we want or need from them. But this would be an amazing opportunity to learn from people who've been looking at community and consent and leadership for a long time and have a lot of skills in this area. So that's an opportunity we have. And because they're just starting, what we can offer them is we can offer them testimonial, referrals possibly in the future to other organizations that might want what they have to offer. And maybe video clips from, if they offer us a workshop and we decide to record it, maybe those clips would be useful to them as they build their business. So
Yeah, we could put them on the
consider.
list of potential affiliate people.
Exactly, right? Yeah, we could
for HSC.
start to build some of that possibly. So
Yeah.
so yeah, they were enthusiastic. I did show them the HSC website, but told them, like, you know, this is not been updated, and it's you know, there's a lot that we're working on, and we're not currently operating in the agency model, blah blah blah. I tried to bring them into some understanding of where we are and what we're up to at this point. Yeah.
Cool.
Just to say, as a you can always show people the Notion site if you want something. If you want to show them, you know, it's not like as nice as like a regular website, but it is pretty updated.
Yep. Okay. That's a good point. Okay, cool. You guys, I really want to do the ice cream raffle.
Yeah.
Since it's more than just me and Rob in this meeting, which means you both have an opportunity to win free ice cream.
Which I'll never get to eat because it's American ice cream.
Do you not have ice cream down under?
Yeah.
Do you?
Oh, I didn't know how this worked.
Don't worry.
Saya, tell her how it works.
Where you live. Real ice cream, not virtual ice cream. Okay. So I'm going to use a random number generator. Rob is number 1 and Christine is number 2. I wrote it down. You can
and
hold
you're
it.
number 3?
No, I'm not in the drawing. I'm offering.
What's this only between me and Rob?
Yes.
All right, I'm 1. Christine, can you remember what number you are?
Okay, drum roll. I'm using
Exciting.
the online random number generator.
Really?
Oh
my God.
And the winner of the ice cream is Rob. Oh my God.
Oh,
Life changing.
Okay, here's the proof. Here's the proof.
Sure.
Proof.
1. I don't know if you can see that.
Transparency, honesty.
Full transparency. I would have loved to also give you some ice cream, Christine, you know, but next time we'll figure that out. Maybe you'll win in the future.
Maybe it's.
No, Christine, I was really gonna like send you a gift certificate for ice cream in your area. Like I really wanted to do that for people.
You'd have to, find what.
I was gonna ask whoever won. I was gonna ask them, please tell me where you're located and if you have a favorite local ice cream spot. Let you know, what is it?
Do you have a favorite spot, Rob?
Yeah, I have a couple. And actually, when it was just the two of us, we were talking that if I won, which was very probable at that point, very likely, that we could just go and meet for ice cream, and Saya could just buy me ice cream like in real life, which I think is still a pretty good idea.
Yeah,
I think it's a pretty good idea. I think it's very likely to happen in the near future.
Yeah. Mount Tom's is that's always a favorite.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yes. That's a good one. Christine, do you want to be on Zoom and have ice cream with us?
You guys strolling around. It's really funny. I always like to eat ice cream only in winter. So this is my ice cream season.
Oh, how perfect.
And it's kind of weird.
That is interesting. That's not the norm, I'd say.
No.
Right. Interesting.
So you're in your ice cream season right now.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's so cool. You guys, I'm going to throw one more rubric in the meeting notes that's in my notes, just so because I did it and it won't disappear from existence. Do you guys know the rubric? It's think, THINK. And each one breaks down into sort of a reflection to consider before entering a dialogue with someone. Hang on, I don't want to put it in the consentient beings.
I know it because you told it to me last Thursday.
Okay. All right, I'm putting it right above the ice cream raffle because that's where it's my notes, I guess. Sort of. Is it? No, that's my introduction. Where's my section? It's down here.
Here, I'll put myself in as the winner, and the winner is
Yeah. Please do. Thank you.
Put your full name. Robert
Rob
the third.
Hurwitz. Rob, I know my phone. I'm not Robert. That's just.
You're not Robert.
Yeah, I mean it is my legal name, but that's yeah, that is not who I am.
Okay. So right above Christine's name, Christine's notes, in my notes, it says think. T, true. What's most true? What is the most true thing one could say about the moment, the feeling, the reaction, the situation? H, helpful. Is the conversation going to be helpful? I, inspiring. What is your direction with the talk? What inspires and directs it? N, necessary. Is it needed? K, kind. How can this be kind to all involved? It's just a little, food for thought or think, as the case may be. And that concludes today's meeting agenda.
All right. So any next steps?
Well, the next steps are at the bottom. Yeah, I'm curious if there's any others.
Oh, okay. Oh, I hadn't seen those. Let me check it out. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, your next step, I guess. I mean, you're leading the next meeting. The very least.
Yeah, I'm gonna lead the next meeting and send out that email, and we've also, just to name, there should be some governance, next steps coming out to the group as well.
Cool.
And yeah, that meeting it's in an hour, right, Christine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there's governance meeting today? That's cool.
Yeah.
Actually, this was one thing I was thinking about. At one point, would it be relevant to have reports from the other meetings at the community meeting, like just a couple of minute report or like a 2-minute thing? Yeah.
I would love that. I think it'd be so cool to hear what's been popping. If you guys want to. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, and we're still, there's still there's not, like kind of full decisions on the next, like meeting, how we're setting up the meetings, even though I think that we sort of have some kind of, fairly agreed upon group ideas or what people like.
Yep.
So, yeah. But I don't know that that's necessary to, get into, at least for next week. But yeah, as we go, I think, there's a lot going on, just to name, with like trying to, happen with value exchange and trying to, decide on some frameworks and some tools. And I think once that happens, hopefully, then that can help things just to pop a little bit more.
Cool.
Yeah.
What is there anything that you guys think I should kind of go back to Moti and Taina with about consentient beings, or are we sort of enthusiastic about the possibility, and maybe maybe at the next meeting or in the next email also, like, get a feel from a few other people if they'd be interested in that workshop?
How about how many people do you think we would need to give them to have like a good experience overall?
That's a good question. That's a good question for us, but also for them. Yeah. I did tell them that our meetings have like, 3 to 6 or 7 people attending. And I think the excitement of like outside facilitators might bring a nice group, possibly. Something different. It's kind of more along lines of a skill share. I mean, it's a workshop.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we could be billed as a skill share. Yeah, I think that, yeah, we would want to see how many people like are I think it's something where, usually our culture, now has been pretty, is like, show up if you want to show up. But I do think that that's something where it might be good to have more kind of tangible buy-in from people. Like, oh yeah, I want to go, something I'll put on my calendar, will attend, that kind of thing.
We could
and we'll see.
tokenize it. You get 20 tokens if you come to the workshop.
20, you should probably pay 20 tokens.
I thought ice cream would help, but here we are.
I know. I thought this would be the biggest meeting ever in the history of HSC. That is really what I thought, because when I hear ice cream, I'm there.
But let's find out. We got to think what people value. They don't value ice cream. So
apparently not. I don't know that I want to work with any of these people. Our values are so conflicted now.
Ice cream over punctuality?
Yeah, I know. And maybe, so I think it's something we can, maybe it is something that maybe doesn't happen until, if other people like it, maybe it doesn't happen until the fall.
Yeah, no, I'm not expecting it to be like, imminent.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So about that, I'll just tell them, that we had a few people here and there's interest, but we're gonna need a little more time to assess how much interest and how many people and when.
Yeah. And I also think it could be nice as far as the timing flow of like, values, right? We're working on developing, what we're, sounds like what we might call our first version, of organizational, culture or values.
Yeah.
And so if we do that, then it might be a nice kind of like then lead into what the next step would be, which is, okay, how are we practicing those values?
Yeah.
How are we working together in more tangible ways?
I feel like there's a difference between having them come and like do it for HSC, whereas having them come and do it for like individual contractors and independent workers just arriving and having the experience and then going. So like if they want to come and like help HSC like build some sort of thing, then that would be a bit of a different approach.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I picture them coming as part of this kind of early culture and skill building. I was imagining like within the next couple of months. And yeah, maybe when we do expand and we are welcoming many more members, maybe there's another opportunity for them to present. But also it will put us all who are here now in a position of learning some of the same skills, practicing together, building the culture that we then welcome others into, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Me too. I made notes on that side because I thought I liked what you were saying.
Sorry?
Oh, I just made notes on what you said.
Perfect.
Yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, I think I'm gonna hop off unless there's anything else for me. And yeah. Okay.
I think that was great. Thank you, Sai. Thanks for all of your preparation. Thank you for the free ice cream, which I will redeem.
Yes, please do.
And thank you,
It
Christine,
expires
for coming.
in 2 months.
What? Oh.
There you go.
I could probably handle that.
No, I'm just kidding. You can have winter ice cream if you want. All right. Well, take care, you both. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you next week.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Sai.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
I'll see you in an hour, Christine, or 55 minutes.
Yeah. Are you